My fiancé looked me in the eye while we planned our engagement party and said, "I don't owe you loyalty." 3 days later, I detonated his career and reputation at that same party, using evidence he thought was gone. Now he's begging on the floor of an apartment he's never seen, asking me to save him. This isn't a story about forgiveness. It's the blueprint for a controlled demolition. My name is Natalie Pierce. I'm 32 years old, and I am a forensic accountant. It's not a glamorous job, but it's one I am exceptionally good at. I live in Harborview, a slick, rain-washed coastal city that feels 1,000 light-years away from the flat, predictable Midwest town I grew up in. My job is to find the truth hidden in ledgers. I trace digital ghosts, follow phantom transactions, and expose secrets buried in spreadsheets. I find order in chaos. I make things add up. My life, until tonight, felt the same way: clean, logical, and accounted for. It's Tuesday, 9:30 at night. The air in our apartment is warm, thick with the scent of the lemon cream pasta we just finished. It's our domestic bubble. Amber light from the Edison bulbs over the dining table pools on the polished wood. My fiancé, Dylan Ward, is sitting across from me. His laptop is open, mirroring mine. We are a team. Okay, so the Marlowe loft confirmed the new uplighting package. I say, tapping a key. That's $300 less than the first quote, and the caterer is locking in the spring menu, so we get the discounted rate, even though the party is in June. See? Dylan smiles, not looking up from his screen. He's finalizing the DJ's playlist. We're good at this. He's right. We are. This whole process, planning our engagement party, has felt like one of my audits. Every contract signed, every deposit paid, every detail logged in our shared spreadsheet. It's clean. It's organized. It makes sense. The Marlowe loft, a beautiful converted warehouse with exposed brick and massive steel beams, is the perfect backdrop. It's us modern, a little edgy, but solid. I look at the spreadsheet, at the neat columns and balanced budgets, and I feel a profound sense of calm. This is our future, being built row by logical row. "Oh," Dylan says, his tone utterly flat, his eyes still on his screen. I invited Ava. The sentence doesn't register at first. It's spoken with the same casual indifference as, "I'll take the trash out," or "We're out of milk." It floats in the warm, lemon-scented air for a second, meaningless. Then, it lands. Ava. Ava is my stepsister. She is the golden child, the beautiful, tempestuous, artistic soul my mother and stepfather worship. She is everything I am not loud where I am quiet, chaotic where I am orderly, effortlessly charming while I am meticulously correct. Ava is also the woman Dylan lived with for 2 years, the woman he was deeply in love with, the woman whose existence he conveniently forgot to mention for the first 6 months we dated, until a drunk friend at a barbecue blew his secret wide open. The air in the room changes. The pasta scent suddenly feels cloying. The warm light harsh. The quiet click-clack of my keyboard stops. What? My voice is quiet. But it's sharp. "I invited Ava," he repeats, still casual. Finally glancing up, he shrugs. A small, dismissive gesture. "She's your family. Nat, it would be weird not to." Weird. I repeat. The word tastes like ash. Weird as finding out my boyfriend's toxic ex he never wanted to talk about was my own stepsister. Weird as you promising me, explicitly, that she would not be part of this. We drew this line. Dylan, you agreed to it. I remember the fight. The screaming match in his car after the barbecue, the weeks of tension, his eventual, tearful apology where he swore she meant nothing, that it was a toxic mistake, that I was his future, and Ava was a closed chapter. The idiot who values closure and balanced books, believed him. Dylan's face hardens. It's a subtle shift, but I've seen it before. The openness snaps shut, replaced by a smooth, defensive mask. This isn't Dylan, my partner. This is Dylan, the PR man, managing a crisis. He leans back, folding his arms across his chest. It's a pose designed to signal he is the reasonable one, and I am the hysterical one. Natalie, don't be insecure. It's been years. She's your stepsister. We're all adults here. Are you really going to let that old baggage ruin our party? My baggage. The words are so sharp I barely recognize my own voice. She is your ex-girlfriend, the one you lived with, the one my family still fawns over as the one who got away from you. And you want her at our engagement party, the party celebrating us. You're overreacting, he says, his voice dropping into that infuriatingly calm, placating tone. You're the one who's always telling me to be better with your family. This is me, being better. I'm extending an olive branch. That is not an olive branch. Dylan, that is a grenade. You didn't even ask me. You just told me, after the fact. You went behind my back and crossed the one boundary I have ever asked you to respect in this relationship. The silence stretches. He stares at me, his jaw tight. I can see the wheels turning. He's recalculating, searching for the right combination of words to shut me down, to make this my fault. He finds them. He drops his arms, leans forward, and looks me dead in the eye. His voice is cold, stripped of all warmth, all pretense. I don't owe you loyalty. Natalie, we're not married yet. There it is. The truth, not a slip of the tongue, but a statement of fact. A core belief, spoken aloud in the warm, safe bubble of our home. The air leaves my lungs in a sudden, silent rush. It's as if a vacuum has been turned on in the room, sucking out all the sound, all the warmth, all the oxygen. I can't breathe. The ambient noise of the city outside, the hum of the refrigerator, the ticking of the clock, it all fades into a deafening, hollow roar in my ears. He doesn't just say it, he believes it, this entire time. Our partnership, our shared spreadsheet, our future, it's all been conditional, a free trial, loyalty, to him, isn't a daily practice. It's a clause in a contract we haven't signed yet. And in that second, the woman he's known for 3 years vanishes. The loving, patient, understanding Natalie. The one who balances his chaos, who organizes his life, who believed his lies about Ava. She's gone. In her place sits a forensic accountant who has just found the fatal irregularity in the books. The single line item that proves the entire enterprise is a fraud. I want to scream. I want to throw my laptop against the wall. I want to rake my nails across his smug, handsome face. Instead, I do none of those things. I go perfectly, terrifyingly still. My breathing evens out. The roaring in my ears subsides. I look at him, this stranger sitting at my table. I see the flicker of confusion in his eyes. He expected tears. He expected to yell. He did not expect this absolute, Arctic calm. You're right, I say. My voice is flat, empty, a perfect monotone. Invite whoever you want. It's your party too. I close my laptop. The small click sounds like a jail cell door slamming shut. I stand up, pick up my plate and his, walk to the kitchen, and methodically scrape the remnants of our lemon cream pasta into the garbage. I don't look at him. I can feel his confused, slightly unnerved gaze on my back. He doesn't say another word. Later, much later, the sound of his deep, even breathing fills the darkness of our bedroom. He fell asleep easily, secure in his victory. The argument won. The troublesome woman put back in her place. He sleeps the sound, untroubled sleep of a man who genuinely believes he has done nothing wrong. I slide out of bed. The floorboards are cold under my feet, in the living room, illuminated only by the faint blue glow of the modem. I open my laptop. The screen boots up, bright and sharp in the dark. I don't open the party spreadsheet. I opened a new tab. I typed in the URL for our joint savings account, the Future Fund, we called it, the account for the wedding, for the house, for the kids we talked about. I logged in. The balance is healthy, $42,651. My eyes scan the transaction history. I don't need to check my personal statements. I have a photographic memory for numbers. I see the deposits. My bi-weekly contributions, steady, automatic, large, his, sporadic, smaller, often followed by a small withdrawal a few days later that he'd explain away. Just moving things around. Nat, don't worry. I open the calculator on my desktop. I am not emotional. I am precise. I add up every single deposit I have made, every cent I transferred in. $38,400. His total contribution, $4,251. I click Transfer Funds. I selected the joint account as the source. I select my private, personal checking account, the one he doesn't know about, the one I've kept since before I met him as the destination, in the amount box. I type $38,400. I click Confirm. The screen processes for a moment. Then, a small green banner appears at the top of the page. Your transfer is complete. A soft ting sound confirms the email receipt has been sent to my personal inbox. In the quiet, dark apartment, that tiny electronic noise sounds as loud as a gunshot. It's the starting pistol for a race he doesn't even know he's in. I close the laptop. I walk back to the bedroom. Dylan hasn't moved. He is still sleeping soundly. A man with no debts, no loyalty owed. I slide back into bed. The sheets cold on my side. I lie on my back, staring at the ceiling, and for the first time in hours, I breathe. The audit has begun. Lying in the dark, my back to the sleeping fraud beside me, my mind does what it's trained to do. It follows the money. It follows the trail back, not of dollars, but of decisions, looking for the first bad entry, the original point of compromise. Where did this all begin? It always begins with Ava. I was 11 when my mother, Caroline, married Richard. It was a quiet, practical wedding. My mother, a widow, was practical. Richard, a soft-spoken man who managed regional sales for a paper company, was also practical. But he came with baggage I hadn't anticipated. He came with Ava. Ava was his daughter, also 11, and she was everything, golden-haired, loud, with a laugh that made adults stop and coo. She was artistic. From the moment she moved into our quiet, orderly Midwest house, she became the center of its gravity. Every dinner conversation orbited around Ava's day, Ava's feelings, Ava's newest passion. I was the quiet one, the one who liked numbers because they were fair. A 2 plus a 2 always equaled 4. It never woke up one day and decided to be a 5 because it felt like it. I liked order, logic, and the satisfying click of a problem being solved. I was the good student, the responsible one, the one who did her chores without being asked. Ava was a whirlwind. She changed hobbies the way other people changed clothes, and each new passion was more celebrated than the last. There was the pottery phase, which produced a series of lumpy, unusable ashtrays our parents displayed like museum pieces. There was the abstract painting phase, which mostly involved flinging paint at our garage wall. Then, the vlogger phase. Each one was enthusiastically sponsored by Richard and my mother, who saw in her chaos a glittering, creative genius. I was the reliable, beige wallpaper. Ava was the unstable, glittering chandelier they couldn't stop staring at. I can pinpoint the exact moment this dynamic was cemented in my mind. I was 18. I came home, clutching a thick envelope. I'd gotten a full-ride academic scholarship to a great university out of state. I'd done it. I'd found my exit. I presented the letter at dinner. My mother kissed my cheek. A brief, dry peck. "That's wonderful, dear," she said, her eyes already drifting. "We always knew you would. So sensible." Richard nodded. "Good. Solid choice. Natalie. Very practical." And that was it. The conversation moved on. Later that night, Ava, who was failing 2 classes, burst into the living room, her phone held high, her latest TikTok, a 30-second clip of her intuitively putting makeup on, had gotten 10,000 views. Richard went to the kitchen and came back, popping the cork on a bottle of champagne. To Ava he boomed, "Our little star. She's finally found her calling." My mother was in tears. "Oh, baby. I'm so proud. We just knew you had it in you." I sat on the sofa, holding my full-ride scholarship letter, and watched them celebrate a 30-second video. I learned my lesson, my achievements were expected. Her attempts were celebrated. So, I left. I went to college and leaned into the one thing I was good at: finding the truth in a sea of numbers. I studied forensic accounting. I worked 2 jobs to cover my living expenses, joined the debate team to conquer my shyness, and graduated with honors. I took out loans for my master's, budgeted meticulously, and started paying them off with my first paycheck from a mid-level firm in Harborview. I built a life for myself, brick by sensible brick. Ava, meanwhile, was finding herself. She had a portfolio career, which was a polite term for chronically unemployed. She lived in a funky loft in the city, which was a polite term for a 2-bedroom apartment funded entirely by Richard. She was creatively fulfilled and, most importantly, completely and totally insulated from the harsh realities of a balanced checkbook. I met Dylan at a company mixer. He wasn't in my department. He was in PR and marketing, which meant he was everything I wasn't: smooth, charismatic, and armed with a blindingly white smile. He glided through the room, shaking hands, remembering names, a golden boy in a tailored suit. I was in the corner, nursing a glass of cheap white wine, planning my exit. He approached me. "You're Natalie from Forensics. Right, I've seen you in the elevator. You're always the most serious person in the building." I gave him the short, boring answer I gave everyone. I'm a forensic accountant. It was usually the end of the conversation, but Dylan leaned in, his eyes bright. "No kidding. So you're a financial detective? You hunt for the bad guys in the spreadsheets. That is incredibly badass." I was so stunned. I laughed. "It's mostly just tracing funds and interviewing people who lie to me." "That's the best part," he said, his smile genuine. "You're a human lie detector with a calculator. I'm in PR. I just make things sound good. You find out what's real. That's a superpower." For the first time in my life, a man looked at my brain and didn't see boring or sensible. He saw a superpower. I was, to use his word, completely hooked. He was charming, ambitious, and he seemed to get me. More importantly, he saw my family dynamic for exactly what it was. He came to a few Sunday dinners. He watched, fascinated, as Ava held court for 20 minutes about the artistic integrity of a burnt crust, artisanal, and frankly, raw pie she'd made. She received a literal round of applause. Later in the same dinner, I quietly mentioned I'd been promoted to senior auditor, managing a team of 3. My mother barely looked up from her plate. That's nice, dear. You work so hard." "Richard, could you pass the wine?" Dylan's hand found mine under the table. He squeezed. Later that night, as we were getting ready for bed, he pulled me close, his expression serious. "It's actually insane. Natalie," he whispered, his voice full of a beautiful, righteous anger that I craved. "You are the entire package. You're brilliant. You're beautiful. You're the most capable person I've ever met. You are worth 10 of her, in every conceivable way. And they just don't see it. They're blind." I held on to those words. I kept them in a vault. "He sees me. He's the one who finally sees me." That sentence became my salvation. It was the antidote to a lifetime of being the wallpaper. The foundation felt solid. It felt real. The first crack appeared 6 months in. At a 4th of July barbecue, the smell of charcoal and sunscreen was in the air. Dylan was a few beers in, laughing with a college friend who'd just moved to the coast. I was walking over with a tray of hot dog buns when I heard the friend, a loud, harmless guy named Mark, slap Dylan on the back. "I gotta hand it to you, man." Mark boomed, "I am so glad you're happy, but I still can't believe you're with Natalie. No offense, Natalie," he said, finally noticing me. "But after the absolute hurricane that was living with Ava, I figured you'd swear off the Monroe women for good." The music from the portable speaker seemed to cut out. The sizzle of the grill went silent. "Living with Ava." The words hung in the humid summer air. Dylan's smile froze, then melted into panic. I just stood there. Living with, not dated, not hooked up with, lived with. My boyfriend's toxic ex from New York he never wanted to name. The chaotic, immature relationship he was so glad to be free of it was her. It was my stepsister. And he had lied to me, by omission, every single day for 6 months. Dylan went into full frantic PR mode. He grabbed my arm, pulling me into the house, his voice a desperate whisper. Nat, please, let me explain. It was years ago. It was a mistake. It was so toxic. I just wanted to bury it. It meant nothing. She means nothing. You are the one I love. I swear to God. Please don't let this ruin us. It was before you. It has nothing to do with us. The whole family was there. They saw the public confrontation, the tension, and in that classic awful way, their discomfort wasn't directed at Dylan, the liar, or Ava, the past. It was directed at me, for being the one to make the barbecue awkward. My mother shot me a look that said, "Don't make a scene," and I, the forensic accountant who values truth above all, did the one thing I tell my clients never to do. I cooked the books. I looked at this man, so desperate and pleading, this one person in the world who, I believed, finally saw my true value, and I made a choice. I chose to believe him. I chose to believe it was a changed man narrative. I nodded. I swallowed my rage, and I accepted his story. I went back outside and pretended nothing was wrong. I, who am paid to find the single, fatal flaw in a set of books, had just found the one in my own life, and I looked right at it, that massive structural crack, and I told myself it was just a shadow. I built my entire future on it. I didn't sleep. I lay perfectly still, my body rigid, my back to him, tracking the hours by the faint red numbers on the alarm clock. 2:15 in the morning, 2:30, 3. The only other sound in the room was Dylan's breathing. It was deep, rhythmic, and infuriatingly peaceful. It was the snoring of a man who had declared a new, cruel constitution for our relationship and then fallen asleep instantly, unbothered. The sleep of the truly righteous, or the truly sociopathic. His words, "I don't owe you loyalty," just played on a loop in the darkness, a perfect, sterile audio file. My eyes were open, and for the first time, I was seeing the last few weeks not as a fiancé, but as an auditor. The little discrepancies I had subconsciously flagged and then dismissed, all of them came rushing back. Dylan, who was usually so open, suddenly guarding his phone like it held state secrets. The way he'd smirk at a text, that small, private smile that wasn't for me, and then quickly tap the screen dark if I walked into the room. His new habit of taking his phone into the bathroom, the screen always face down on the nightstand, and the notifications I'd glimpsed. I told myself I was paranoid, that I was the insecure one, just like he'd said, but I'd seen the name, a text from A, paired not with a name, but with a tiny, cutesy fox emoji. Ava, my stepsister, his ex, the woman he had just invited to our engagement party, the woman he was now receiving clandestine, emoji-coded texts from, at 3:15 in the morning, my professional instincts, the ones I had so diligently suppressed in my personal life, took over completely. They were screaming. I slipped out of bed, the floor cold under my feet. The adrenaline from the transfer of my $38,400 had faded, replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. That transaction was defense. This was an offense, in the living room, lit only by the blue glow of the router. I opened my laptop. I didn't go back to the savings account. That boundary was already drawn. I logged into our joint checking account. The one for bills, for groceries, for the mundane, shared expenses of a life lived together. The one I never scrutinized because, ironically, I trusted him. My fingers flew across the keypad. I set the date range for the last 90 days. I am paid to find patterns in noise. I am paid to spot the single, fraudulent transaction hidden in a million lines of data. I found them in under 5 minutes. It wasn't one big thing. It was a death by 1,000 paper cuts, a $150 Venmo payment to a name I didn't recognize, sent 2 weeks ago. The memo line was just one word, reimbursement, a charge from a high-end cocktail bar I'd never heard of, one in the expensive part of town, for $80. The date was a Tuesday, and he told me he was working late. A withdrawal from a branch ATM, $200, listed simply as booking fee. Booking for what? He was sloppy. He was arrogant. He was committing petty, predictable fraud right under the nose of a forensic accountant, insulated by the belief that I was too in love, too sensible, to ever look. My hands were shaking, but not from fear or sadness. It was rage, a cold, clean, professional rage. There was only one person in the world I could call at this hour. I dialed. She picked up on the second ring, her voice instantly awake and alert. Nat. What's wrong? It's almost 4 a.m, Lena, my half-sister, 26 years old, living in Chicago, and the only member of my fractured family I actually considered an ally. She was the one person who saw the family dynamic for the toxic theater it was. I'm fine, I whispered, my voice low and tight, my eyes fixed on the bedroom door. I'm calling about Dylan. I told her everything. I kept my voice a flat monotone. I told her about the party planning, the casual way he'd dropped the bomb. Oh, I invited Ava. I told her about the argument. And then I gave her the exact quote, the words that were now seared into my brain. He told me, I don't owe you loyalty. We're not married yet. The silence on the other end of the line was absolute. For a second, I thought the call had dropped. Then, Lena's voice, sharp as a razor, cut through the dark. Natalie, that is not a red flag. A red flag is a tiny piece of cloth warning you that you might get hit by a train. What he just said is the entire, flashing, neon-lit sign that says, run. He is the train. He is telling you, in plain English, exactly who he is. Are you finally listening? I am now, I said, my voice barely audible. I feel like I've been the third wheel in my own relationship for months. You have been, she said, her voice softening, but only just. He's been auditing your boundaries, and you've been letting him get away with it. So, what's the plan? Are we crying, or are we fighting? I looked at the glowing laptop screen, at the list of his petty secret transactions. I looked at the closed door, behind which the man I thought I was going to marry was sleeping, blissfully unaware that his entire world had just shifted under his feet. The tears I should have been crying, the wave of grief I had been expecting, it wasn't there. It had been replaced by a familiar, old focus, the same focus I got when I was closing in on a target. I said, the word tasting strange and new. What if we do both, but we get the crying done first and then we fight? I paused, and a new, stronger thought replaced it. No, not fight. We don't fight. We dismantle, systematically. I could hear the slow, dangerous smile in Lena's voice. There she is, legal, cold, and by the book. That's how you win. Nat, you don't get emotional. You get evidence. I think I already have some, I said, looking at the screen. We talked for another 10 minutes. We built the framework of a new plan. When I hung up, the apartment no longer felt like my home. It felt like a compromised asset, a scene. I looked at the confirmation email from my bank. Sitting in my personal inbox, the transfer of my $38,400 was complete. That was the first move, drawing a hard, undeniable financial line, my money, my contributions, safe, his pathetic $4,251, left behind. He paid that much. He gets to keep that much. A clean ledger, a thought, sharp and bright as a scalpel, cut through the exhaustion. I have spent my entire adult life, my whole career, dedicated to finding the truth. I unmask executives who embezzle millions. I trace assets through shell companies. I dismantle complex, fraudulent schemes for a living. I am relentless. I am thorough. And I have been willfully, pathetically blind to the con man sleeping in my own bed. I have been ignoring the fraud happening right at my own dining room table. No more. I minimized the bank window. I opened a new, blank Excel spreadsheet. The grid of empty, white cells was a comfort. It was logical. It was clean. In the file name bar, I typed, my hands were steady now. File name Phase 1, Data Collection. The 2 days between Tuesday night and Thursday were a masterclass in domestic theater. I was the perfect, loving fiancé. I made his coffee in the morning. I asked about his day, feigning interest in the banal dramas of his PR world. I smiled. I did not, under any circumstances, show my hand. He, in turn, was relieved. He read my calm acceptance of Ava's invitation as a sign that I had, as always, folded. He thought his little loyalty speech had worked, putting me back in my place. He was affectionate, even smug, mistaking my silence for submission. It was, I noted with a clinical detachment, disgusting. I spent those 48 hours in a state of hypervigilance, my Phase 1 data collection spreadsheet open on my work computer all day. I was an actress by night, an auditor by day. I was living a double life, just like him, but mine had a purpose. Thursday night, he came home late, past 8:30. "Hey, you?" he called out, dropping his keys in the bowl by the door. "Sorry, that virtual client meeting ran forever. These West Coast guys have no concept of time." He loosened his tie, looking convincingly stressed. "I'm just going to jump in the shower. I'm dead. No problem," I called back from the sofa, my voice pitched with the exact right amount of wifely understanding. "I saved you some pasta." He disappeared into the bedroom, and a minute later, I heard the hiss of the shower start. My eyes snapped to the coffee table. He had made a mistake, a fatal one. In his haste to wash off the grime of his day, or perhaps the guilt of his lies, he had left his work tablet on the table. This was not normal. Dylan was pathologically attached to his devices, his work tablet, his personal phone. They were extensions of his body, always guarded, always angled away from me, always locked. But tonight, in his feigned exhaustion, he'd slipped. He'd left it sitting right there, dark and dormant. I didn't move for a full 30 seconds. I just listened to the steady, percussive sound of the water hitting the shower tile. This was it. This was the moment. I picked it up. The screen was heavy and cold in my trembling hands. I pressed the home button. The screen lit up. It was unlocked. My God. He was arrogant. He was so confident that I was the docile, incurious woman he'd manufactured that he hadn't even bothered with a passcode. And then, as if summoned by my very touch, a banner notification slid down from the top of the screen. From Elysian Jewelers, Concierge Elysian Jewelers, come, subject your diamond bracelet receipt. My heart didn't stop. It did the opposite. It began to beat with a hard, heavy, methodical rhythm, a hammer against my ribs. My fingers were steady. I tapped the notification. His email client opened, full screen. There it was, an itemized receipt, complete with a high-resolution photo. 1/1 Elysian signature tennis bracelet. Material 14K. White gold. Stones 2.5 carat. Natural diamonds. Price $5,000. I scrolled down. My eyes scanned the text, looking for the one thing I knew I would find. Personalized engraving request. To my wild heart. A. Always. D. A. Always. The room felt hot and small. I closed my eyes for just a second, and in that darkness, my brain, my beautiful, relentless, analytical brain, made the connection. I minimized the email. I opened his browser. I logged into our joint checking account. Scroll. Date range last month? There. 11 days ago. Withdrawal ATM. Branch 402. $5,000 Hazars. Not $5,000. $5,008. He'd been so sloppy he didn't even care about the ATM fee. I remembered the day. I'd seen the alert. I asked him, "Dylan, what's this $5,000 withdrawal? Did our rent check bounce?" He'd laughed. A dismissive, airy sound. He'd kissed my forehead. "God, no. Bank error. Can you believe those idiots I'm on the phone with them now, handling it? Don't you worry your pretty, logical head about it. Handling it. He hadn't been on the phone with the bank. He had been at an ATM, pulling out $5,000 in cash from our joint account money I had deposited for bills to go and buy a diamond bracelet for my stepsister. A wave of nausea so profound it made me dizzy. I gripped the edge of the tablet. To my wild heart. He used to call me his wild heart when I'd find $1 million fraud. He was recycling. He was so lazy he was even recycling our pet names. I was about to close the window, about to take a screenshot, when a second notification slid down. This one from his calendar. Reminder. Final payment due in 48 hours. Amalfi lovers escape. I didn't even have to think. My fingers were moving on their own. I tapped it. The calendar event opened. It was a 9-day block, starting in 3 weeks. The title was Amalfi Lovers Escape. The attendees were listed Dylan Ward and Ava Monroe. D.A. The event was linked to a travel confirmation. I clicked the PDF attachment. It bloomed on the screen, bright and glossy. Costa Aurelia Resort, Amalfi Coast. We are delighted to confirm your booking for our exclusive Amalfi Lovers Escape package. Guests Mr. Dylan Ward, Ms. Ava Monroe. Room the Terrazza d'Amore Suite, Lovers Suite. Dates redacted to redacted. The exact 9 days he had, just last week, told me he absolutely had to be at a boring, mandatory marketing conference in Dallas. He looked so sad about it. He'd complained about the bad carpeting and the terrible boxed lunches. He held my hands and said, "I'll miss you so much it'll hurt." The PDF was a multi-page brochure. The final page was a gallery of typical suite views. There was a photo of a couple, artfully silhouetted, clinking champagne glasses on a private balcony. The deep, impossible blue of the Tyrrhenian Sea was spread out before them. I knew that view. My blood turned to ice. I knew that exact balcony, that specific angle, the white bougainvillea cascading over the railing. I opened a new tab. I went to Ava's Instagram. I scrolled back 3 weeks. She'd been on a last-minute European work trip, a creative retreat, to find inspiration. Her stories had been full of cryptic, glamorous shots. Here was a photo of a glass of champagne, her hand holding it, with a second, larger, unmistakably male hand in the corner of the frame. Here was a shot of the Amalfi coastline. Captioned, "Sometimes you just know," and here it was, a photo of her, wrapped in a white hotel robe, her back to the camera, looking out over that exact view. From that exact balcony, the work trip hadn't been work. It had been a test run, a vacation paid for by him, planned for them, while he told me he was in Dallas. The pieces didn't just click into place. They slammed together with the force of a tectonic shift. The A texts, the $5,000 bank error, the bracelet, the Dallas trip, the work trip, the "I don't owe you loyalty" speech. It was all one, single, continuous, calculated act of fraud. My legs gave out. I didn't fall so much as fold. I slid from the sofa to the floor, my knees hitting the rug. The tablet slipped from my hands. It hit the hardwood floor with a clack that sounded, in the quiet, empty apartment, as loud and violent as a gunshot. A sound came out of me. It was a raw, strangled gasp, the sound of a person who has been punched in the stomach. The tears finally came, but they weren't the soft, sad tears of a broken heart. They were hot, angry, acidic tears of pure, undiluted humiliation. He hadn't just cheated. He hadn't just lied. He had made me his accomplice. He had used my money, my home, my trust, and my intelligence against me. He had looked me in the eye, the woman whose entire life was based on finding the truth, and he had built a monument of lies, confident I would never, ever look. The crying lasted for maybe 30 seconds. It was a storm that blew through and left an arctic calm in its wake. The grief evaporated, sizzled away by a new, cold fire. My sadness was gone. What was left was ice. What was left was the auditor. I looked at the tablet. lying face up on the floor. I looked at the shower door, still opaque with steam. I heard the water still running. I picked up the tablet. I took a screenshot of the calendar event. I took a screenshot of the hotel confirmation. I took a screenshot of the jeweler's receipt. I took a screenshot of the engraving. I took a screenshot of the joint account withdrawal. I forwarded the original emails to my private, secure email address. I airdropped the screenshots to my personal phone. I went to my laptop. I created a new, encrypted folder on my secure cloud drive. I named it Evidence DA. I uploaded every single file. I went back to the tablet. I meticulously cleared the browser history. I deleted the emails from the recently opened cache. I cleared the notifications from the lock screen. I closed every app. I changed my personal email password. I changed my bank password. I changed my cloud password. I enabled two-factor authentication on everything. I placed the tablet back on the coffee table, in the exact same spot, at the exact same angle he had left it. I sat back on the sofa, folded my hands in my lap, and waited. A moment later, the hiss of the shower stopped. The silence of the apartment was absolute. The next morning, I didn't call in sick. I went to work. I sat at my desk, surrounded by the quiet, orderly hum of my real life, the life I had built. I ran a report on a construction company suspected of padding invoices. I flagged 3 discrepancies before 9:30 a.m., and at 10:30, I logged into a secure video call. Lena had texted me the name at 5 a.m. Kendra Holt. She's a shark. She eats men like Dylan for breakfast. Don't be nice. Just show her the files. Kendra Holt's video feed was crystal clear. No soft focus filters. Just harsh, fluorescent office lighting. Her hair was pulled back into a severe bun, and she wore a sharp, navy blue blazer. She looked like she could calculate your net worth just by looking at you. She didn't smile. "Ms. Pierce," she said, her voice crisp. Lena gave me the broad strokes. "Let's assume everything you're about to tell me is 100% true and admissible. Show me what you have." I didn't give her any emotions. I didn't cry. I gave her data. I shared my screen and walked her through the Evidence DA folder, the email from Elysian Jewelers, the $5,000 withdrawal from the joint account, the calendar invite, the Amalfi Lovers Escape PDF, the names, the dates, the lies. I finished, and there was a long clinical silence. Kendra just stared at the screen, her expression unreadable. Then, she unmuted herself. "Well, Ms. Pierce," she said, a small, dangerous smile touching the corner of her mouth. "This is exceptionally clean. This isn't just a partner who's a philandering idiot. This is a partner engaged in financial malfeasance. He used a joint, commingled account 1 to which you are the primary contributor to fund a lavish lifestyle and purchase significant gifts for a third party, with whom he is having an affair. That is a clear-cut breach of fiduciary duty, not to mention just spectacularly stupid." She leaned in. "That $5,000 bracelet, that's not a gift. That is an asset you have a claim to. That Amalfi trip, that's theft. Because he is in PR, and this kind of documented, unethical behavior misappropriating funds. Lying to a partner could be a significant character issue for his employers, especially if he entertains clients for his firm. It speaks to a pattern." My heart was beating that same, steady, heavy hammer beat from the night before. "So," Kendra said, "here's what we're going to do. You've already secured your primary liquid asset, which was smart. Do not engage. Do not confront him. You will continue to be the loving, devoted, slightly overwhelmed fiancé. You will let him walk directly into the snare he has built for himself. The party is in 6 days." "Yes," I said. "Good. That's our timeline. You need an exit strategy, a new place to live, a new bank account, a plan to move your non-commingled assets. If you want to make this hurt, and I mean really, professionally hurt, you don't tip your hand, you don't get emotional, you get organized, you get out, and then you let the evidence do the work. If you want to blow it up, you do it once, and you do it right." The call ended. Blow it up right. I like that. I went back to my Excel file. Phase 1. Data collection was complete. I renamed the spreadsheet. File name controlled demolition. I created new tabs. My fingers flying. Tab 1 Asset Extraction. Personal funds. Secured. Physical items. Pending. Tab 2. New location search. In progress. Lease pending. Tab 3. Vendor contracts. Review pending. Action pending. Tab 4. D-Day timeline. Draft in progress. Tab 5. Key personnel. This was no longer about a broken heart. It was a project plan. I tackled Tab 3 first. During my lunch break, I pulled up the folder with all the contracts for the engagement party, the Marlowe Loft venue, the caterer, the DJ, the florist, the open bar. I scanned the signature lines. My stomach dropped, then soared. Dylan, in his infinite arrogance, had handled all the bookings, which meant he had forwarded all the contracts to me to sign and pay the deposits for, claiming he was too swamped to handle the boring admin, the Marlowe Loft $20,000 fee, $10,000 deposit paid on my Amex card, the caterer $12,000 minimum, $6,000 deposit paid on my Visa, the bar $5,000, the florist $3,000. His name wasn't on a single financial document. It was all me. I was, in effect, the sole proprietor of his and Ava's engagement party. A slow, cold smile spread across my face. Oh, this was good. This was better than good. I opened a new Word document. I drafted a very polite, very legal email. Dear vendor, pursuant to the cancellation clause in Section 4B of our contract, I am writing to formally notify you of the cancellation of event D9872. I understand the deposit is non-refundable. Thank you for your understanding. I made 4 different versions. I saved them as drafts in my email. Just waiting. One single click away from execution. Tab 2. New location. At 3 p.m., I took a conference call and walked out of my office. I had 3 viewings scheduled, all within a 10-block radius, all in secure, high-end buildings where a lease could be signed digitally. By 5:30 p.m., I was standing in a 1-bedroom apartment on the 14th floor of a building overlooking Harborview. It was smaller than our shared apartment, but the ceilings were high, and one entire wall was a sheet of glass, the water and the city lights glittering below. It was empty. It was clean. It was mine. I signed the lease on my phone in the elevator on the way down. I used the $38,400 I'd rescued to wire the deposit and the first month's rent. The leasing agent emailed me the codes. I had a home, effective immediately. That night, I started Tab 1 Asset Extraction. When I got home, Dylan was on the sofa, on a client call, his voice that fake, charming boom he used for work. I walked past, gave him a small, tired smile, and went to the bedroom. Just packing up some old winter clothes for a donation drive at work. I called out. I pulled my large, hard-shell suitcase from the top of the closet, and I began. I didn't pack clothes. I packed myself, my passport, my birth certificate, my social security card, my university degree, my grandmother's jewelry, the only thing of value I had from her, my backup hard drives, the tax returns for the last 7 years. I packed every file, every document, every item that proved I was Natalie Pierce. I left the us behind, the framed photos of our trips, the stupid fluffy throw blanket he loved, the art he'd picked. The entire apartment was now just a stage set. I put the suitcase in the trunk of my car. I did this every day. Tuesday, it was documents. Wednesday, it was my irreplaceable personal items. Thursday, it was my expensive work clothes, hidden in garment bags. Just taking these to the dry cleaner, tab 5, key personnel. This was Lena and one other person. Lena was my handler. We spoke in code over text. We had a nightly, 5-minute debrief call when Dylan was in the shower. He asked why I was so quiet. I'd whisper, my hand over the phone. Good. Lena's voice would come back, sharp and clear. Tell him you're just overwhelmed with gratitude. Tell him you're so happy he's handling the playlist because he has such perfect taste. Use his own PR bullshit against him. You're the nervous, excited bride. Act like it. We gave the party a code name. The Marlowe Night. The final piece of the plan came on Friday. The day before the party, I called Jordan. Jordan is a data security analyst at my firm. A genius, and the most loyal friend I have. Jordan, I said, catching him at the coffee machine. Are you still coming to my engagement party tomorrow night? Wouldn't miss it. Nat, he said. Though I still think the guy's a tool, but free drinks are free drinks. I have a favor to ask, I said, my voice low. It's an IT favor. I'm putting together a surprise slideshow of our memories, but my laptop is acting weird. Yeah, he said. His interest piqued. Yeah, I'm going to give you a USB drive. It's got a slideshow. Can you make sure it runs on the AV system at the venue? Like, take charge of it. Make sure it's queued up and ready to go when I give the signal. Jordan's eyes narrowed. He knows me. He knows I don't do cute slideshows. What's on the USB? Nat, a presentation, I said. Just a few key data points. Can you do it? He looked at me for a long, silent moment. You got it, he said. I'll be your AV guy, whatever you need. That tool won't even know what hit him. That evening, I sat at my desk and finalized the USB. It wasn't a slideshow. It was a PowerPoint. 5 simple, devastating slides. The hotel confirmation, the jeweler's receipt, with the engraving circled in red, a screenshot of the $5,000 withdrawal next to a screenshot of Dylan's text message to me about the bank error, all of it, formatted, clean, and undeniable. I looked at the plan. The new apartment was ready, my assets were secure. The vendor emails were in my drafts folder. The slideshow was in my purse. I was applying the principles of a complex forensic audit to my own life. I was identifying the fraud, quantifying the damages, collecting the evidence, and preparing for an extraction. It was the most logical, most sensible, most sane thing I had ever done. The demolition was scheduled. All the charges were set. All that was left was to push the button. Saturday, the day of the party, the Marlowe night. I woke up before the sun. There was no hesitation, no last-minute desire to pull the covers over my head and make it all go away. I felt a strange, vibrating calm, the kind of calm an engineer feels before a planned demolition, when all the charges have been set, all the calculations have been double-checked, and all that remains is to walk to the designated observation point. I took a long shower. I let the water run scalding hot, steaming up the glass, until my skin was pink. I was washing off the last, sticky residue of the woman I had been, the compliant, sensible, understanding Natalie, the one who believed in shared spreadsheets and balanced books, the one who thought loyalty was an assumed baseline entry, not a line item to be negotiated. When I stepped out, I was someone else. I did not reach for the soft, cream-colored dress I had originally planned to wear. Instead, I pulled out a dress I had bought with my first big bonus, one I had never been brave enough to wear. It was a single sheath of heavy, moss-green silk. It was severe, structured, and utterly simple. It had long sleeves, a high neck, and it was cut so precisely it looked less like a dress and more like a beautiful, tailored weapon. It was a color Dylan had never seen on me. It was the color of deep water, of power, of ice. I sat in my vanity. The one Dylan always complained took up too much space. I laid out my makeup like surgical tools. This was not about being pretty. This was about drawing a schematic. I applied my foundation with methodical precision, creating a blank, flawless canvas. There would be no blushing bride. My eyeliner was a sharp, black, unwavering slash, extended just so, making my eyes look analytical and cold, and the lipstick. I reached past the neutral pinks and soft corals. I chose a deep, dark, matte finish wine, the color of old, dried blood. I drew the line of my mouth with a brutal, perfect accuracy. When I was done, I looked in the mirror. The woman looking back was not a fiancé. She was an auditor who had found the fraud, and she was here to present her findings. When I walked into the living room, Dylan was struggling with his cufflinks, his face flushed. He looked up, and his jaw went slack. "Wow," he said, his voice a little breathless. "Nat, oh my God. You look incredible. That dress, it's intense." "I felt like a change," I said, my voice perfectly even. He crossed the room, his eyes devouring me, a new possessive gleam in them. "Intense is good. You look powerful." He leaned in to kiss me, his mouth aiming for mine. I turned my head at the last second, a fraction of an inch, a subtle, almost imperceptible shift. His lips, soft and wet, landed on my cheek, just by the sharp line of my jaw. He pulled back, a flicker of confusion in his eyes. He laughed, a short, nervous sound. Okay, someone's nervous. It's just a party, babe, our party. Let's go." He thought it was nerves. He thought my stillness was anticipation. He had no idea. The Marlowe loft was everything. It was exactly the dream I had described, brought to life with my money. The raw brick walls glowed under hundreds of tiny suspended string lights, making the vast industrial space feel like a captured galaxy. Candles flickered on every surface. The tables were set with dark linens and spilling, dramatic floral arrangements. The buffet was a work of art. The jazz trio in the corner was playing something smooth and sophisticated. It was perfect. It was a stunning, beautiful, expensive lie. And I, its architect, hated every inch of it. Guests trickled in, then flooded. Our families, our friends, his colleagues, my colleagues. The air filled with the sound of laughter, of clinking glasses, of enthusiastic greetings. It was warm. It was celebratory. "Natalie, Dylan, you've outdone yourselves. This place is breathtaking. That dress, Natalie, so stunning. Congratulations. You two, you just look perfect together. I was the perfect hostess. I was the perfect bride-to-be." I smiled, my new, dark red, razor-sharp smile. I accepted the hugs. I thanked everyone for coming. I kept my hand on the small of Dylan's back. A gesture of ownership he seemed to adore, not realizing it was the hand of an auditor, checking for a wire. I saw Jordan by the AV booth, testing a connection. He caught my eye and gave me a single, solid nod. The USB was in place. I navigated the room, a glass of untouched champagne in my hand. My senses on fire. I was scanning. I was observing. I was collecting the last of the data. And then, she arrived. Ava. She was, of course, fashionably late. The double doors of the loft opened, and she didn't just walk in. She made an entrance. It was like a scene in a movie where the film slows down. The sound drops out, and one person is illuminated in a column of light. She was wearing a slip dress of pale, liquid champagne silk. It clung to every curve, pooled at her feet, and left her shoulders and back completely bare. It was a dress that screamed, "Look at me." It was the exact dress from a file I had saved on our shared drive. In a folder labeled, "Engagement Party Inspo," a file Dylan had seen, a file he had looked at and told me, with a little sneer, was a bit much. "Don't you think? Try too hard. It's not you. Nat." It wasn't me, but it was, apparently, Ava, and on her wrist, catching the light from 1,000 tiny bulbs, was the bracelet, the Elysian tennis bracelet, the 2.5 carats of natural diamonds, the $5,000 bracelet. It glittered with every gesture, a flashing, obscene beacon. I saw my cousin glance at it and then quickly look away, her face tight. I saw a few of Dylan's colleagues, the wives, zoom in on it, their eyes sharp, already doing the math. My mother and stepfather, Richard, descended on her like she was a visiting royal. "Ava, darling, you look like a movie star," my mother gushed, pulling her into a long, tearful hug. "Just a goddess, sweetheart," Richard said, beaming. "You light up the room." Ava lapped it up, laughing her high, tinkling laugh. My mother finally turned, saw me standing just a few feet away, and her smile became a little more strained. "Oh, Natalie, you look nice, too. That color is very severe, dear." The old, familiar sting of being the wallpaper, the sensible beige background to Ava's glittering chaos. It came, as expected, but for the first time in my life, it didn't hurt. It just focused me. It was the last piece of validation I needed. This wasn't just about Dylan. It was about all of them. I turned to get another glass of water, my performance as the gracious hostess momentarily slipping. As I passed a small alcove, I heard a familiar, dramatic whisper. It was Ava, huddled with two of her friends, her back to me. They were holding champagne flutes, their heads bent together. "I'm telling you, it's almost over," Ava was saying, her voice brimming with a kind of theatrical, excited pity. "He's miserable. After tonight, after this whole thing is done, he won't have to play the good, stable guy anymore. He promised." "Are you serious? He's going to tell her?" one of her friends whispered. "He has to," Ava said, and I could hear the triumph in her voice. "We just can't let him be stuck with a heartless, emotionless accountant for the rest of his life. Can we? It's just cruel," the friends giggled, a high, cruel sound. "To Ava's rescue mission," one of them toasted. I froze. A heartless, emotionless accountant. So that was it. That was their plan. They weren't just cheating. They had a script for tonight. They were going to blow up my life, right here, in this room I had paid for. Dylan was going to end it. Probably. He would play the victim, the man trapped by the severe but cold woman, and Ava, his wild heart, would be there to rescue him. They would be the tragic, romantic heroes of the story. And I would be the collateral damage, the boring, sensible problem that had been solved. I stood there for a second, just behind the curtain. They had their script. They had their big, dramatic third-act reveal. They had no idea that I had already rewritten the ending, and that I was the only one in the room holding the real script. I walked away, my green silk dress making no sound. I found Jordan. "Is it ready?" I asked, my voice low. Queued up and locked in. "Nat," he said. "You just tell me when." "It'll be soon," I said. I looked across the glittering, laughing, oblivious room, and my eyes found Dylan. He was watching Ava, a stupid, lovesick smile on his face. Showtime. The jazz trio faded out on a soft, melancholic note. The ambient chatter of the party dipped as Greg, a slick, favored colleague of Dylan's, stepped onto the small, raised platform. "All right, everyone, all right," his voice boomed, amplified by the speakers, a little too loud, a little too cheerful. "If I could have your attention, let's get a massive round of applause for our incredible hosts, the perfect couple, Natalie and Dylan." A wave of warm, polite applause washed through the loft. My mother, in the front, was already dabbing at her eyes. "Come on up, you two," Greg motioned enthusiastically. I know everyone is just dying to hear a few sweet words from the happy couple. Dylan, in his element, practically bounded up. He lived for a spotlight, for a microphone. He was the PR man, after all. He turned to me, his smile a blinding white veneer, and reached for the mic Greg was holding out. "Ladies first, of course," Dylan said, gesturing for me to take it. It was the perfect opening. He expected me to blush, to stammer a few awkward words, and to hand the stage right back to him. He was, as always, wrong. I took the microphone. My hand was rock steady. The metal was cool against my palm. "Actually," I said, my voice smooth and clear, cutting through the low murmur of the room. "I'll start." I turned to the crowd. 150 faces, all smiling, all expectant, all lit by the soft, fraudulent glow of the candles and the thousands of string lights. I saw them all. My mother braced for a boring, sensible speech. Dylan's parents, looking profoundly proud. I saw his boss, the senior vice president of his firm, standing near the front with a glass of scotch, looking indulgent. Thank you all so much for coming, I began, pitching my voice with the exact right amount of warmth. It was my practiced, professional, presenting my findings to the board voice. It means the world to us to be here, to share this incredibly special milestone with all of you, with the people we love the most. Dylan slid his arm around my waist, pulling me tight against his side. He squeezed. I could feel the heat of his body. He was beaming. I'm so lucky, he mouthed at me, his eyes shining. I am too, I said, looking right at him, my voice carrying over the speakers. I let the feedback ring for just a second. Then, I turned back to the crowd. We're here tonight to celebrate a partnership, a true, committed partnership, and I actually want to propose a special toast, a very special toast. I want to raise a glass to the real happy couple in the room. A few people chuckled. A light, confused, awkward sound. They thought I was making a joke. Dylan's smile twitched. His arm at my waist tightened, his fingers digging in. What are you doing? He hissed, his smile frozen, his voice for my ears only. I didn't answer him. I stepped forward, smoothly detaching myself from his grasp. I raised my free hand, not with a glass, but as if to gesture. I pointed, my index finger sharp and steady as a blade, right past Dylan, toward the corner where Ava was holding court, her champagne silk dress shimmering. I would like to congratulate my fiancé, Dylan Ward, and my stepsister, Ava Monroe, on their upcoming, secret, romantic getaway to the Amalfi Coast next month. The silence was instantaneous. It was absolute. It wasn't a hush. It was a void, as if all the oxygen had been sucked from the room. Jordan, I said, my voice sharp and clear into the microphone. Now, behind me, the massive, wall-mounted projector screen, which had been scrolling a tasteful loop of abstract, artistic photos, flashed white. Then, it was resolved. It was an email, my email. But magnified 12 feet high, bigger than life. The whispers started then. Not whispers, but sharp, indrawn gasps. What is that? Oh my God. Is that Ava's name? For those in the back, I said, my voice ringing out in the dead, terrible quiet. This is a booking confirmation for the Amalfi Lovers' Escape at the Costa Aurelia Resort. I let my eyes scan the crowd, finding my mother, finding my stepfather. As you can see, the reservation is for 2 adults, Mr. Dylan Ward and Miss Ava Monroe. I used the tip of my finger to point to the fine print, now visible to everyone in the room. And they've booked the Terrazza d'Amore suite, the lover's suite. How romantic. Dylan had gone a chalky, pale white. He was grabbing at my arm. Natalie, stop. Stop this. What is this? This, I said, pulling my arm free with a sharp yank, is the Dallas conference you were so sad about missing me for. This is also the, let's see. I gestured to the total at the bottom of the invoice. Ah, yes, the $10,000 charge that paid for this. It was drawn from our joint wedding savings account, the one I primarily funded. You might remember it. Dylan, you told me it was a bank error. You told me you were handling it, and you did. You handled it beautifully. But, I continued, my voice bright, what's a European getaway without the right accessories, Jordan? Next slide. The screen changed. The click of the keyboard was the only sound. Now, the screen showed the receipt from Elysian Jewelers, the price $5,000, and the personalized engraving request, captured in a screenshot, circled in a thick, digital red. To my wild heart, A, always, D. I was so confused, I said, adopting a tone of mock thoughtfulness. I thought I was the wild heart. I'm the accountant, after all. I looked over at Ava. She was frozen, a statue of champagne-colored silk. Her hand, the one with the bracelet, was instinctively, uselessly, trying to cover the glittering diamonds on her other wrist. Her face was a mask of ugly panic. But I see now it was a gift, I said, my voice dangerously sweet. And I have to say, Ava, it does look beautiful on you. It really complements your entire brand. The room was a tomb. My mother looked like she had been slapped. My stepfather, Richard, was a shade of puce I had previously thought was only possible in cartoons. I turned back to Dylan. His mouth was open, but no sound was coming out. He looked like a fish, suffocating on dry land, his perfect suit suddenly looking cheap and ill-fitting. "You know, Dylan," I said, my voice dropping from its sarcastic height into a cold, clear conversational tone. I leaned into the microphone, as if sharing an intimate secret with all 150 of our guests. "The other night, just a few days ago, when I questioned why you would invite your ex-girlfriend, my stepsister, to our party, you taught me a very, very valuable lesson. Do you remember what you said?" I didn't wait for an answer. I looked him dead in the eye. You looked me in the eye and you said, "I don't owe you loyalty. We're not married yet." A collective gasp. This was the part they couldn't believe. The cheating. Yes. The quote, "No." "And I just want to say," I continued, "from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Thank you for teaching me that lesson early enough. You were absolutely right. Loyalty is a choice, not an obligation." I let that hang in the air. "So, I'm making a choice," I announced, my voice firm. "The engagement is, obviously, cancelled. Our finances are, as of 3 days ago, completely and irrevocably separate, and as for this beautiful party," I gestured around the glittering, silent, horrified room. "Please don't let this stop you. Eat, drink, enjoy the jazz trio. It's all paid for, by me, on my American Express card. The cancellation policy means the deposits are non-refundable, so you might as well enjoy the shrimp." A single, hysterical-sounding laugh was choked off in the back. However, I said, "am withdrawing from this particular play. I'm not a fan of the script." I placed the microphone gently back on the stand. The small metallic thud of it settling into the clip was the loudest sound in the entire, vast loft. I turned. I did not run. I walked. My back was straight. My head was high. My moss-green dress whispering around my knees. I walked off the platform, right past Dylan, and headed straight for the massive double doors. I didn't look back, but I saw everything. I saw my mother, Caroline, holding onto Richard's arm, her face white with shock, and I realized with a cold clarity, profound public humiliation, Richard looked like he was about to have a stroke. I saw Ava, finally in tears, but they weren't pretty tears. Her face was a mess of ugly, blotchy panic, her hands still clamped over the bracelet, as if she could make it invisible. Dylan finally unfroze. Natalie, wait." He lunged forward, trying to follow me, but he was immediately blocked by Jordan, who just happened to step in his way, and another one of my colleagues from the firm, a 6'4" auditor who looked like a linebacker. The last person I saw was Dylan's boss, the senior vice president. He wasn't looking at me. He was staring at Dylan, who was now shoving Jordan, his mask of PR charm completely gone, revealing the ugly, desperate fraud beneath. The VP wasn't angry. He was disgusted. He looked like he had just found a cockroach in his $100 cocktail. I reached the exit. I pushed the heavy bar. The door swung open, and a rush of cold, clean, blessedly real nighttime air hit my face. I stepped out, leaving the heat, the light, and the stunned, echoing silence of the detonation behind me. The heavy, fire-rated door of the Marlowe loft swung shut behind me. The thud it made was deep and absolute, a sound of profound finality. 1 second. The air was full of the chaotic, rising shriek of 150 voices reacting to a detonation. The next, there was only the damp, quiet hum of the Harborview night. The sound was gone. It was as if I had, with one simple motion, hit the mute button on my entire life. The air was cold. It was a relief. It hit my face, which was hot, and I realized I was breathing in a quick, shallow rhythm. I forced myself to take one long, slow inhale of the cool, damp, slightly polluted city air. It tasted like freedom. I didn't have my car. We had taken a car service. I didn't care. I started walking. My heels, sharp and thin, clicked on the wet pavement, an aggressive, solitary sound in the 9 o'clock quiet of the warehouse district. The streets were slick from an earlier rain, and the neon signs from the bars a few blocks over bled in long, watercolor streaks on the black asphalt. It felt exactly like I had just walked off a stage, like I had been playing a part in a very long, very badly written play for years, the sensible, quiet, accommodating, emotionless accountant, and I had just improvised a new ending, thrown the script in the air, and walked out of the theater, leaving the entire cast and crew staring, slack-jawed, on a stage I had paid for. My purse, a small, hard case clutch that matched my dress, began to vibrate. It wasn't a gentle buzz. It was a frantic, angry, continuous rattling. Like a trapped insect, I stopped under a streetlight. I pulled out my phone. The screen was a waterfall of panic. 14 missed calls from Dylan. 9 missed calls from Mom. 2 missed calls from Richard. The texts were a scrolling, hysterical ticker tape of the chaos I had left behind. Dylan, Natalie, pick up the phone. Pick up the goddamn phone. Dylan, what did you do? What did you do? You ruined me. Dylan, come back here. We need to talk. This is insane. Dylan, Nat, please, baby, please come back. Mom, Natalie, Elizabeth, I have never been so mortified in my entire life. You have shamed this entire family. Call me, now. Richard, this is beyond belief. You owe your mother and Ava an apology. Mom, Ava is hysterical. She is having a panic attack. Are you happy, Ava? I don't know why you would do this to me. I thought we were sisters. I love him. Natalie, you can't just buy love. And you were so cold to him. You were always so cold. Ava, you are a cruel, vindictive, heartless bitch. I read the texts, one after another. Under the buzzing yellow light of the street lamp, the words just slid past my eyes, like bad data in a report. They had no emotional weight. It was just noise. I watched the 3 little dots appear as Dylan typed another, no doubt more frantic, message. I pressed the button on the side of my phone. The screen went black. I didn't turn it off. I just silenced the ringer, silenced the vibrations. I put the phone back in my purse. It could rattle in there all it wanted. It couldn't touch me. I kept walking, away from the loft, toward the waterfront. As I turned the corner, my phone gave a single, soft bing, a sound I had designated for only one person. I pulled it out again. Lena. Holy shit, Lena. The video of your toast is already in the extended family group chat. Aunt Clara posted it. Lena. Mom is losing her mind. She's texting everyone that you had a psychotic break. Lena screenshot attached. Lena screenshot attached. Lena screenshot attached. I tapped on the screenshots. They were from the family chat I had muted 2 years ago. Mom. She needs help. She is seriously unwell. That was a private matter. Richard. Her behavior was appalling. We are so sorry to everyone who had to witness that. Aunt Clara. Witness what she had receipts. That boy stole from her. Mom. Clara, this is not your business. I smiled. A real, genuine smile. The first one all night that reached my eyes. I typed one word back to Lena. Virally. She replied instantly. Lena, I am so fucking proud of you. I could cry. Where are you? Are you safe? I typed back. 14th floor, Harborview. I'm home. I walked the 10 blocks to the new building. The lobby was all glass and cold. Minimalist steel. It smelled of nothing. I took the elevator up, alone. I stepped out onto the plush gray carpet of the 14th floor. I walked to 14B. I keyed in the code I had memorized. The lock beeped. A polite, electronic click. I opened the door. The apartment was dark. I stepped in and hit the light switch. A single, warm, yellow track light turned on. illuminating the living room. It was almost completely empty. There were 3 cardboard boxes I had dropped off earlier, stacked neatly by the wall. There was a simple, queen-sized mattress, still in its plastic, lying on the floor. There was the small, folding card table I had bought for $10. I walked to the center of the room and dropped my purse on the floor. The sound was small. I stood there, in my moss-green silk dress and my sharp, high heels, and I just listened. There was no sound, no angry fiancé, no disappointed mother, no jazz trio, just the faint, distant hum of the city, 14 floors below. I realized this was the first time in 3 years I had been in a space that was 100% my own, a space where no one wanted anything from me, expected anything of me, or was about to lie to me. The emptiness didn't feel sad or lonely. It didn't feel like a loss. It felt like a clean ledger. It felt like relief. I took off my heels, one by one, and left them by the door. I walked, barefoot, across the new, clean floor to the card table. I pulled my laptop from the canvas tote bag I'd left there with the boxes. I sat on the floor, my back against the cold, unpainted drywall, and I opened it. The Wi-Fi connected instantly. I opened my email. I went to my drafts folder. There they were. The 4 emails I had written and rewritten. Waiting. To the Marlow Loft events. Team subject cancellation. Event D9872. Pierce Ward to Harborview Catering Events. Subject cancellation. Event date 72 to the Midnight Trio Jazz. Subject cancellation to Bloom Stem Florists. Subject cancellation. My finger hovered over the mouse. This was the last step, the administrative execution. I hit send. I hit send. I hit send. I hit send. The sound of the email whoosh was tiny, but in the empty room, it sounded like 4 distinct, final cuts. Almost immediately, my inbox chimed. 4 new messages. 4 polite, automated replies. We have received your request and will respond within 2 business days. It was done. Every tie was severed. I was about to close the laptop when my inbox chimed one more time. This one was not an automated reply. The sender was Elizabeth Vance. The email address was from Dylan's PR firm. The subject line was confidential inquiry. My blood went still, but not with fear, with anticipation. I opened it. Dear Ms. Pierce, my name is Elizabeth Vance, and I am the head of human resources for firm name. I am writing to you on a confidential basis. We were made aware this evening, by one of our clients who was in attendance at your event, of a serious allegation of professional misconduct leveled at one of our employees, Dylan Ward. The allegation involves a potential conflict of interest, the misuse of joint-held accounts, and what could be construed as misappropriation of funds. We take such allegations extremely seriously. We would be grateful if you would be willing to speak with us, or provide any documentation you may have, to help us confirm the details of this matter as part of our internal review. Please let me know a time that is convenient for you to talk. Sincerely, Elizabeth Vance. I read the email twice. His boss hadn't just been disgusted. He had been a senior vice president protecting his firm. He hadn't waited. He had acted. I looked at the email. I looked at the evidence DA folder on my desktop. I smiled. A slow, tired, satisfied smile. You wanted to play by the rules of contracts, Dylan, I whispered to the empty room. He said, I don't owe you loyalty. Okay. I didn't reply to the email. Not tonight. I saved it to a new folder. I labeled it Leverage. I don't owe you loyalty, I said again, to myself. And I don't owe you my silence. I closed the laptop. The wave of exhaustion that hit me was total, a physical weight. It was the adrenaline draining out, leaving nothing but bone-deep, profound tiredness. I didn't bother to take off my makeup. I didn't bother to change out of my dress. I just peeled back the corner of the plastic on the new mattress, crawled onto it, and lay on my back. I stared at the blank, white ceiling of my new, empty, quiet apartment. I was alone. I was, financially, in a hole from the party. But my core savings were safe. My life was in boxes. My family was furious. I had never, ever felt so good. I was asleep in under 60 seconds, and for the first time in years, I slept deeply. I didn't dream at all. I slept for 9 uninterrupted hours. I woke up not to an alarm, but to the feeling of bright, unfiltered Sunday morning sunlight hitting my face in the empty apartment. The light was sharp and clean. I felt rested. I felt, for the first time in my adult life, completely and totally at peace. And then, the banging started. It wasn't a knock. It was a frantic, desperate, a rhythmic pounding that vibrated through the solid core door of 14B. It was the sound of an animal, of all pretense being gone. I didn't rush. I got off the mattress, my legs a little stiff. I walked to the door and looked through the peephole. The fisheye lens showed me a complete picture of a man who had detonated. It was Dylan. He was still wearing the suit from last night. The elegant, charcoal gray suit was rumpled beyond recognition, as if he'd slept in a gutter. His expensive, white shirt was unbuttoned at the top. His tie was gone, and there was a faint, dark stain on the lapel. His hair was sticking up in damp, frantic tufts. His face was puffy, his skin a sickly gray, and his eyes, even through the peephole, were a shocking bloodshot red. He looked like the before photo in a cautionary tale. He raised his fist to pound on the door again, and I opened it. I opened it only 6 inches. I planted my bare foot on the hardwood and stood in the opening, my body a physical barrier. "Natalie," he gasped. His voice was a dry, ragged croak. He smelled like stale alcohol and pure, refined panic. He immediately tried to push his way in, shouldering the door. "Let me in." "What the hell is this? Where are we?" I didn't move. I placed my palm flat on the door, holding it firm. "No," I said. My voice, by contrast, was low, rested, and clear. It sounded unnervingly loud in the quiet, carpeted hallway. "No," he repeated, his voice cracking with disbelief. "What do you mean?" "No, you're insane. Are you actually insane? You did this. You blew up my entire life." He was yelling now, his voice echoing. "You are making a scene, Dylan," I said, my voice never rising. "My new neighbors can hear you. I am not letting you into my apartment." "Your apartment!" he shrieked, and a high, hysterical note of laughter came out. "Our apartment is back there." "What is this? What did you do?" "I planned," I said. "This is not up for discussion. If you want to talk, you will lower your voice. We will go down to the residence lounge on the 3rd floor. It's empty on Sundays. We will speak there. Or you can continue to scream in this hallway, and I will call security. It's your choice." His face went through a rapid, ugly series of emotions: rage, confusion, and then, seeing the absolute, cold finality in my eyes, came desperation. He knew he had no leverage. He needed me. "Fine," he spat, wiping his sleeve across his mouth. "Fine. The lounge. Whatever." He turned, his movements jerky and uncoordinated, and stomped toward the elevator. I calmly stepped back, closed and locked my door, and slid my feet into a pair of sandals. I didn't bother to change out of the sleep shirt I was wearing. I followed him, keeping a good 10-foot distance, as if he were a volatile, unpredictable subject. The residence lounge was a masterpiece of beige, inoffensive corporate design, soulless sofas, a generic live, laugh, love style print on the wall, and a Formica countertop. It was empty, as I knew it would be. The second the door clicked shut behind us, he erupted. It was as if the dam of his composure, which he had barely been holding back, just burst. "You ruined me," he screamed, his voice cracking. He was pacing, his hands tearing at his already ruined hair. "You bitch. You couldn't just talk to me. You couldn't just break up with me. You had to execute me in front of everyone." I sat on one of the beige sofas, my posture erect, my hands folded in my lap. I just watched. My boss called me at 7 a.m. this morning, 7, on a Sunday. Elizabeth Vance, HR. She wants me in at 8 a.m. tomorrow for a formal review. Do you know what that means? Natalie, do you? And that client was the one who was right there. He's pulling his account. He's gone. A $2 million account. Gone. My entire career is over. Because of you, because you're petty. He wasn't done. And my family. My parents are mortified. They're not speaking to me. And yours? Your mother is telling everyone in the state that you've had a psychotic break, and Ava. I held up a hand. The small motion stopped him mid-rant. What about Ava? I asked. My voice laced with a faint, clinical curiosity. She's a wreck, he howled, his voice full of a sudden, bizarre, misplaced righteousness. She is completely and totally shattered. She's at my apartment. She's been crying for 12 hours. You humiliated her for what? For what? Because you're insecure. You're a cold, heartless, calculating bitch. I let the silence hang for a moment after his final, desperate insult. I let him stand there, panting, a ruined man in a ruined suit, having just defended his mistress's honor to his fiancée. Are you finished? I asked. Am I? He just gaped at me. I'm assuming that was the core of your argument, that I'm crazy, I'm a bitch, and I've ruined you by exposing the things you, yourself, did. Is that an accurate summary? Natalie, he said, his voice suddenly dropping, the rage deflating, a new, wheedling tone coming in. I reached down into the canvas tote bag I'd brought. I pulled out a thick 9x12 manila envelope and tossed it onto the glass coffee table between us. It landed with a heavy, satisfying thwack. He stared at it. What's that? My findings, I said. Since you seem to be confused about the why, I find that physical data helps. His hands were shaking. He fumbled with the clasp and dumped the contents out. I had printed everything, in full, high-resolution color. I watched his face. I watched the last of the blood drain from it as he saw the first page, the Amalfi lover's escape confirmation, with his name and Ava Monroe in the guests field. I watched him see the lover's suite highlighted in yellow. I watched him see the jeweler's receipt, the $5,000 price tag, the engraving. I watched him see the bank statement, a perfect clear line item showing the $5,000 withdrawal from our joint account, right next to a printout of his text to me, bank error, I'm handling it, and just for good measure, I had included the screenshots, the ones from Ava's work trip story, with his distinct, muscular arm and his watch band visible in the reflection of the hotel window. He didn't speak for a full minute. His rage was gone. His arrogance was gone. All that was left was the raw, pathetic fraud he had always been. He sank onto the sofa opposite me. He looked up, and his face was no longer angry. It was just terrifying. They're going to fire me, he whispered. It was a statement. Elizabeth Vance. She emailed you. I know she did. The client told her. She'll listen to you. And then, the shift. It was incredible to watch. From an auditor's perspective, the rage had failed. The accusations had failed. Now, we were entering Phase 3, the plea. Nat, he said, his voice breaking, becoming wet and pliable. Babe, please, you can't let them do this. This was a mistake. A stupid, awful mistake. The mistake, I said, was getting caught. No, he cried, and he scrambled off the sofa and onto his knees. He actually got on his knees on the cheap, beige carpet and crawled a few feet to me. Please, Natalie, I'm begging you. You have to help me. You're the only one who can fix this. He tried to take my hands. I moved them, placing them back in my lap. He was undeterred. Just call them. Call Elizabeth. Or email her back. Tell her it was all a joke, a prank, a misunderstanding. Tell her you were mad at me for something small. And you lied. Tell them you lied. The sheer and spectacular audacity of it almost made me laugh. So, you want me to lie, I clarified. To save your career? No. Yes. I mean, it's just a different version of the truth. Tell them you knew about the trip that you wanted me to take, Ava. As a bonding trip and the bracelet, oh God. The bracelet tells them it was a gift from you to her, to welcome her to the family. Yes, that's it. That's perfect. He was weeping now, real, snot-producing. Ugly tears were streaming down his ruined face. Please, Nat, I'm on my knees. I'll do anything. I swear to God. I will never, ever speak to Ava again. I'll block her number. I'll go to therapy. I'll go to couples therapy. You can control all the money. I don't care. I'll sign anything. Just please don't let this happen. I'm ruined. I've lost everything. Please. I looked down at him, at this broken, sobbing, manipulative creature on the floor. I felt nothing, just a profound, cold stillness. You're right, I said. You have lost everything. I stood up. He flinched, as if I'd struck him. Natalie, please, he sobbed. Grabbing at the hem of my shirt, I stepped back, breaking his grip. The other night, Dylan, I said, my voice quiet, but carrying in the sterile room. You made your terms clear. You looked me in the eye and said, I don't owe you loyalty. You had every right to say that, and you were right. It wasn't a contract. So, I continued, I will not be emailing Elizabeth Vance with a different version of the truth. You had the right to not owe me loyalty, and I have the right to not owe you a lie to save your career. What will you tell her? He whispered, his face a mask of terror. If she asks me, I will do what I am paid to do. I will provide the documents, the truth, no more, no less. The contents of that envelope will be her internal review. He saw it was over. The begging was useless. So he tried one, last, pathetic time. He tried to deploy the good guy card. His voice became soft, nostalgic, manipulative. Nat, how can you be this cold? I know you. This isn't you. Remember that first year when you were on that huge construction fraud case, and you were working for 3 days straight? You were so stressed, and I stayed up with you. I made you coffee. I rubbed your back. I told you that you were a genius, and that you'd find it. I supported you. I looked at him, and in that moment, I saw the whole con. He hadn't been supporting me. He had been studying me. He'd seen my desperate need to be seen, my history of being overlooked, my work ethic, and he had built his entire persona around being the one guy who got it. He was a PR man, and I was his longest-running, most successful campaign. You weren't supporting me, Dylan, I said, the realization cold and sharp. You were just taking notes. You were learning how to play me, and you got sloppy. I reached into the pocket of my pajama pants. I pulled out a small black velvet box. The box he'd used to propose. I'd gone back for it last night when I'd grabbed my laptop. I didn't throw it at him. I placed it calmly on the coffee table, right on top of the printout of his bank error text. He stared at it, his tears stopping. The ring, he whispered. It's in the box. I said. I flipped the lid open, but inside, nestled on the black velvet, there was no 3-carat diamond. There was just a small square piece of white cardstock, printed from my label maker, in bold, black, all caps. It read, I don't owe you loyalty. He stared at the words. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. You were right, I said, my voice gentle, but final. You didn't owe me a thing, and now, I don't owe you another minute of my life. I walked to the door of the lounge and held it open, the morning light from the hallway flooding in. The meeting is over, I said. You should go. You have a big day tomorrow. You need to get your suit cleaned. He didn't move. He just knelt there, a broken, empty man, surrounded by the wreckage he had made, the paper evidence of his own stupidity. Goodbye, Dylan. I walked out. I didn't look back. I let the heavy lounge door swing slowly shut, closing him inside with the truth. The call from my mother came 3 days later. 3 days of profound, unbroken silence. I had used the time productively. I had emailed Elizabeth Vance at Dylan's firm, providing her with the password-protected Evidence DA folder. My accompanying text was one sentence: "Here is the documentation you requested. I am available for a call if you need clarification." I had hired movers. I had the locks on the old apartment changed. As the lease was still in my name, I was, in effect, securing the scene. My mother's voice on the phone was not loving. It was brittle, high-strung, and vibrating with the frequency of command. "Natalie, we are meeting, all of us, tomorrow, 10 a.m., at the Gilded Bean. We are going to sort this out, as a family, and put an end to this embarrassing spectacle." It was not an invitation, it was a summons. "Ava will be there, Dylan will be there," she continued, her voice sharp, "and we are going to fix this." "Okay, Mother," I said. My voice was calm, almost gentle. "I'll be there." I agreed, not because I had any illusion of reconciliation. I agreed because this was the final entry in the ledger. This was the closing argument, and I would not have it happen without me. I needed to say my final words in a forum where they could not, as they had my entire life, pretend they hadn't heard me. The Gilded Bean was a quiet, overpriced cafe with plush velvet chairs and soft classical music, a place designed for civilized people to have civilized disagreements. They were already there when I arrived, a miserable little island of 4 at a round table in the back. Dylan looked worse than he had on Sunday. He looked gray, thin, and hollowed out, as if his insides had been scooped. Ava was beside him, her face pale and swollen, hidden behind a pair of massive, dark sunglasses. My mother and Richard sat opposite them, rigid with a furious, judgmental indignation. I hadn't even pulled out my chair before my mother began. "I hope you are satisfied, Natalie," she said, her voice a low, furious hiss that was meant to pass for a whisper. "I have never, in my entire life, been so publicly humiliated. The phone calls I have had to field. You did not just break up with a man. You detonated a bomb and took this entire family down with you." "Your mother is right," Richard chimed in, his face mottled. "You went too far. This was common. Whatever disagreements you two had, you do not air that laundry in public. It was just pure jealousy, and it was cruel." "Cruel," my mother repeated, nodding sharply. "Ava is fragile. She has been in a terrible state. You were treading on her heart, and you did it with a sledgehammer." On cue, a small, choked sob escaped from behind Ava's sunglasses. She reached a trembling hand toward Dylan's, but he didn't seem to notice. He was just staring at the polished wood of the table. "He told me you were just a responsibility," Ava whispered, her voice watery. It was her well-rehearsed victim script. "He said he was trapped. He promised me he was going to break up with you after the party. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I just followed my heart." I looked at them, the jury of my failure. All united in their verdict I was the cold, jealous, unstable, heartless accountant who had gone insane. Then, Dylan, he finally looked up. He tried to muster some of his old PR charm, to be the reasonable adult in the room. "Nat, listen, this is all just a horrible misunderstanding. We can get past this, all of us. If you would just admit you misunderstood, if you would just tell people you overreacted, we can fix this. We can put this story back together." He was still trying. Even now, he needed me to co-sign his lie. He needed me to take the blame, to recant my testimony, so he could walk away clean. "A misunderstanding," I repeated. My voice was quiet, contemplative. I sat down and placed my purse on the table. "You're right. I think I have misunderstood." I reached into my bag. I didn't pull out the thick manila envelope. That was for HR. I pulled out just 2 folded pieces of paper. "I misunderstood. For instance, that this was all about Ava," I said, my voice conversational. "I thought this was some grand, tragic love story, and she was the one. Your wild heart." I unfolded the first page and slid it onto the center of the table. "This is a screenshot of your profile on Hinge, and this one is from Bumble, both created, let's see, 4 months ago." That's well before you even booked the Amalfi trip. Dylan, that's back when you and I were supposedly making plans for our future. His hollow eyes widened. He stared at the printout of his own smiling face, his bio reading, "Looking for a fresh start. I love to travel. No drama." "And this," I said, sliding the second page over, "is my favorite part of the audit. This is a message thread from 2 months ago, with a woman named Sarah. You seem very interested in her work trip to Chicago. And here, yes, you're asking her if she likes champagne and if her hotel room has a good view." I looked up. The table was frozen. I turned my head, very slowly, to look at Ava. Her sunglasses were still on, but her mouth was open. She was, for the first time, looking at Dylan with an expression of pure, unadulterated horror. She wasn't his one true love, who had rescued him from the cold accountant. She wasn't his wild heart. She was just Sarah from Chicago. She was just another option. She had been conned just as badly as I had. She just didn't have the paperwork. I looked at my mother and Richard. Their mouths were clamped shut. The jealousy argument had just been voided. The cruel daughter had just presented new data. Dylan saw it was over. The game was up. Ava was staring at him in repulsion. My mother was speechless. The family reconciliation narrative was dead. So he switched. This was not the plea of a man trying to save a relationship. This was the final, raw, desperate plea of a cornered animal. This was begging. Version 2. "Okay," he said, his voice dropping, hoarse and frantic. "Okay, you're right. I screwed up. I screwed up. Okay, badly." He looked around the cafe, then leaned in, his voice a low, conspiratorial whisper. "Look, we can build a story together, for the family, to protect everyone. We just say we grew apart. It was mutual. We say that and, Natalie." He looked right at me, his eyes now wet and pleading. "The job. They are going to fire me. The ethics committee, they're meeting tomorrow. You already sent them the files. Didn't you?" "I provided the documentation they requested," I said, my voice flat. Okay, he said, holding his hands up, a gesture of surrender. "We can undo it. You can send a new email. Say you were emotional, say you were confused. Say anything, Natalie. I'll sign a paper, right now. Whatever assets are left, they're yours. The apartment, the car. I don't care. Just help me. You can't let them take my job. Please, I am begging you." He was offering me my own money. He was offering me assets to buy my complicity, to purchase my lie. I looked at this bankrupt man. I looked at my mother, my stepfather, and my stepsister. All of them silent, all of them complicit in this fraud, in one way or another. "No," I said. The word was quiet, but it was absolute. "I will not be fabricating a story for you," I said, my voice clear and final. "But I also won't be proactively smearing you. My involvement in your life is over. When and if I am asked a direct question by a legal entity or your firm's human resources department, I will answer. I will provide the truth, and I will provide the evidence. I will not add. I will not subtract. I will simply balance the books." I turned to my mother. "And as for this family, I am done. I am done being the wallpaper. I am done being the sensible one you can ignore. Lena and I will be fine. The rest of you need to figure out your own roles in this. You need to figure out why you were so eager to protect the con man and villainize the accountant. Until you do, we have nothing to talk about." I stood up. I pulled a $5 bill from my purse and placed it on the table. "For my coffee," I said. I hadn't ordered one. I turned to Dylan one last time. He was just staring at me, his mouth open. He had nothing left, no cards to play, no one left to con. "You wanted to calculate loyalty by a marriage contract. Dylan," I said, "I calculate loyalty by behavior, and you, sir, are bankrupt." I walked out of the cafe. I didn't look back. I stepped out onto the sidewalk, into the bright, cold, November air. I pulled out my phone. I went to my settings. Stop sharing location. I tapped my mother's name. I tapped Richard's. I tapped Ava's. I went to my contacts. Dylan, I held my finger on the name. Block this caller. As I did, one final text message buzzed through, the last one he would ever be able to send. Dylan, please, I'll do anything. I'll give you everything. I didn't read the rest. I just pressed block. The message, and the man, vanished. I stood at the corner, waiting for the light to change. The noise of the city, the cars, the people, it all felt new. I took a deep, clean breath of the cold air. The climax was over. The demolition was complete. The sight was clear. I knew the rest of my life wouldn't be easy, but it would be built on a foundation that was solid, one I had laid myself, one that was based, finally, on my own self-respect. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'm curious. Where in the world are you listening from right now? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to connect and hear your thoughts. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to Zoe Revenge Stories, like this video, and give it an extra boost by hitting the hype button so more people can hear it.